There are many controversies in Philippine history that must be addressed, one of which is the location of the first Mass in the Philippines. So now, we are here to prove and show you accurate and credible sources and evidences that the first Mass was held not in Limasawa Island in Leyte, not in Humonhon Island in Samar, and most profoundly, not in Mahaba Island in Surigao, but in Mazawa in Butuan City, Agusan del Norte. Here are some reliable sources that we found that strongly back up our claims.
It takes bravery to assert an argument that could change the course of one country's history. This mindset has never shaken Vicente Calebo de Jesus, a media and communication practitioner who is one of the most vocal proponents of the cause to recognize Butuan as the site of our first Mass in the country, including Masao, the Lost Harbor. He has started a number of online petitions to have his claim recognized. He has cited documents and even geomorphological arguments to back up his claim on his Facebook page. When the country's foremost historian, Ambet Ocampo, was still in charge of the National Historical Commission of the Philippines, then known as the National Historical Institute, a committee led by economist and historian Benito Ligarda Jr. was formed to re-examine the matter. Arguments were held, written, and laid out in one of his published articles, Masao, Magellan's Lost Harbor by Vicente C. de Jesus on June 21, 2004 at Malabon City, and new findings on the first Mass in the Filipinas on June 21, 2004, also at Malabon, which is originally published on August 13, 2018. This article was published within a 1,000-kilometer radius of Butuan City, where accordingly to De Jesus, the first Mass was held.
According to Alexander Lopez' article entitled Book Backing Claims Butuan as Site of First Mass Lunch, Putenciano Armalvar, the author of the book Behind the Pale, The Limasawa Ox, A Tragedy in the Philippine History, is a local historian and a long-time advocate in recognizing Butuan City as the site where the Easter Sunday Mass in the country was celebrated in 1521. Alexander Lopez noted in the same article that Dr. Malvar's book Behind the Pale, The Limasawa Ox, A Tragedy in Philippine History was produced or published on April 7, 2021. Dr. Malvar used this book as an original source because he conducted all of the research and studies in Spain, Portugal, and the Boston and Yale libraries in the United States. Dr. Malvar's book was published in 2021 by the Butuan Calagan Historical Cultural Foundation. Going through the pages of his well-researched book, I saw how committed he was to correcting a centuries-old historical error. Dr. Malvar traveled to Spain, Italy, Portugal, and the United States in his quest for the truth, visiting libraries and viewing artifacts, maps, and graphs from Ferdinand Magellan's search for the Spice Islands. He also took an ocular tour of the islands of Omonlon, Limasawa, Malimunon, Surigao del Norte, and Magallanes, ending at the Buod Masao site and Carvalho Monument. It took him 5 years to finish this book.
The Historical Anthropology of Masao, based on Antonio Spigafetta's account, is a written research paper that was published by the International Journal for Innovative Research in Multidisciplinary Field, a monthly peer-reviewed, referred, Index International Research Journal on 30th of November 2018. The author of this research article are Wenceslao V. Coben and Carlos C. Magparo. Both are faculty of Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Muntinlupa City, Metro Manila, Philippines. IJIRMF publishes original research papers, articles, and etc. It is a platform for all researchers in varied subjects, publishes original authoritative research papers, articles, research projects, reviews, mini-reviews, case studies, synopsis, and short research communications. The study was written on Muntinlupa City, Metro Manila, Philippines, and intended to shed lights about the controversy in the first mass on the Philippines. The study explores some points in the chronicles of Antonio Pigafetta regarding Masao which satisfies the description of the place for the first mass in the country, officiated by Fray Pedro D. Valderrama on Easter Sunday, March 31, 1521.
The 609-page book that is almost half a century in the making, recently published in 2020, entitled An Island They Called Masao, was written and independently published by a Butuan City-based Roman Catholic priest, Father Usilio Amalia. It is based on his over 46 years of research and investigation into the landmark event that started Christianity in the Philippines when the Magellanic expedition made its providential sojourn in the upper archipelago almost 500 years ago. He had a passion for reading history books, a passion that grew and grew over time. He had the opportunity to meet Jaime Cardinal Sin, who encouraged and greatly inspired him to conduct additional research on the subject of the first mass in our country. The first edition of the book was published in Metro Manila and in key cities nationwide. But despite the long distance between the place of publication and the actual location of what he claims was the first mass was held, we can deny that he spent the last 46 years researching about the topic, traveling around Europe and back to Butuan just to gather evidences.
Now, we'll present to you some conclusive evidence derived from the credible sources we showed you earlier.
Amala pointed out the word limasawas was never mentioned in Pigafetta's or Albo's accounts. Instead, he explained that the primary sources record that the first mass was held in a place called Mazua. The exact words were Exyema Mazua and is known as Masua. Using an interdisciplinary approach in his historical investigation, Amala stated that the only Butuanon and its derivative language, Usog, have the word Masawa, which means bright light. Magellan was prompted to the land in Mazua by the island bright light the night before. Amala disclosed that when the late Jaime Cardinal Sin of Manila was still alive, he told Amala he supported his Butuan claim for the first mass. He said Cardinal Sin allowed him to see the original copy of the Annales Ecclesiasticos de Filipinas, 1574 to 1683. This document stated that the Easter Sunday Mass in 1521 was celebrated by the chaplain of Magellan in Butuan, Amala said. According to Pigafetta, two kings attended the Mass, one named Raya Kulambo and the other Raya Shawi, both of whom Amala claimed were Butuanon brother kings. Pigafetta also mentioned the island's abundance of gold several times, and Hontiveros pointed out that the gold was the currency of the Butuan kingdom before the Spaniards arrived. In fact, the majority of gold pieces in the Central Bank Gold Collection, which is also permanent display at the Metropolitan Museum of Manila, are from Butuan's archaeological discoveries.
According to the primary sources including the diary of Antonio Pigafetta, the Chronicle of Magellan's voyage, the place's name was supposedly 3 syllables, Masao. Limasawa has 4, and it begins with another letter. Location of latitude. Some major sources are located at 90 degrees north latitude and others at 9 2/3 degrees. The latitude position excludes Limasawa because it is closer to 10 degrees and reinforces Masao. Butuan's claims because it is exactly 9 degrees. Road to Cebu. The route to Cebu taken by explorers was almost exactly the same as today's route by motorboat from Cebu to Butuan. The king of Masao, Kulambo, even guides adventurers to Cebu and acts as their interpreter and mediator when they meet the Cebu king. In contrast, there was no maritime traffic from Masawa to Cebu then and now. And the distance to Cebu, according to Pigafetta, is 35 leagues, 140 miles. If it was the Limasawa that came from, the distance would have been only 80 miles. half the distance supposedly traveled. Geographical features. The following First Kingdom physical features indicate Butuan, not Limasawa, as follows. Bonfire. Adventurers were attracted to the light present the night before they landed. However, the name Masao, which in Butuanan means exactly brilliant, may refer to the local custom of celebrating a harvest by cooking elder rice outdoors. However, there are no rice fields in Masao. Common Road. According to the primary documents, the expedition again traveled 20 to 25 stages from Mumunuan, their first landing point, the site of the first lap in a west-southwest direction. If they had gone to Limasawa Island, the distance was only about 14.6 leagues, which is half the length. In addition, Limasawa Island is blocked at Mumunuan by the southern tip of Lake.
The evidence that Masawa Island existed, according to Malvar, was a 1683 map by the Augustinian Recolletus. In a 1902 map, the island had vanished because earthquake had fused it with the mainland and floods had silted it out. The current Masawa is thought to be a barangay Masao, one of Butuan City's 85 villages. Malvar used a 1739 map to track Pigafetta's 35 leguas. Legua is an absolute unit of length. 1 legua equals 3 miles or 4.84 kilometers. From Masawa to Gatigan to Zubu. However, the distance between Limasawa and Zubu was less than 20 leguas. Malvar questions Limasawa's ability to supply spice twice, citing the large hull of the ship Victoria when it returned to Spain. Limasawa's tadpole shape also contrasted with Pigafetta's cartograph of Masawa Island.
Amalia proposed that when modern-day historians attempted to update historiographical records, they couldn't find an island near Butuan, so they looked for an island with a name that sounded like Masawa, and they discovered Limasawa. And politicians took advantage of the situation, he added. However, the data from first-hand sources refute this, Amalia said. Magellan's distances, times, and directions do not point to Limasawa at all. Furthermore, as mentioned in the journals, Limasawa has rocky shoreline and cannot be a natural harbor. It's also too small and rough to have rice fields that take 2 days to harvest. And unlike Butuan, it lacks gold mines, kingdoms, and an oral tradition documenting such an encounter. Amalia further said that Limasawa has been inaccessible and hardly been inhabited, that it became a parish only in 1994, but the first Christian settlement in Mindanao was in Butuan in 1596. When the remains of Butuan plank boats were discovered in the 1980s by the National Museum archaeologists, the first mass controversy was reignited. The amazing discovery is bolstered by Father Amalia's claim that Magellan's docking at Limasawa, an elongated island with perilous coral reefs, was a geodetic impossibility. Since time immemorial, it has never had a port or harbor. Butuan, at the mouth of an eponymous bay with its Masawa Island, was where Magellan anchored, exactly because it was an ancient port that had been trading with China and beyond since time immemorial.